If you have a 2025 first round rookie pick, in today's video, I'm going to tell you exactly what you could send that away for a player already in the NFL. We're going to go window shopping, maybe some actual shopping, and tell you what you could exchange those picks for given today's current market. Now, it's important to state before we even dive in that while this 2025 rookie class does have its strengths, I would say mainly the running back position and tight end as well, it is not going to yield the same return as 2024 picks, meaning your 103 in 2025 is nowhere near as valuable as it was in 2024. Even your 108 is nowhere near as valuable in 2025 as it was in 2024, especially in super flex leagues. And look, the hype could grow for this class as we get closer and closer towards April and the NFL draft. So if you'd like to maximize value, you can wait and hold on to your picks, but if you're looking to sell them, here's what you could get back in return. And by the way, in today's video, I'm going to show you real trades that our community have made for these rookie picks. And starting off with the 101. Now, currently the rookie consensus for the 101 is Ashton Jeanty, and in my rankings, it would also be Ashton Jeanty. He'd be locked and loaded in a tier of his own. I do personally believe that the 101 is in its own tier this year, which is not how I felt about last year's class. And if you're looking to trade that 101 away for a player currently in the NFL, in Superflex leagues, if you're looking for a quarterback, I believe you can get Drake May for the 101. He'd easily be, in my humble opinion, if you put him in this class, he'd probably be the 101. He'd be the first overall pick. He'd be locked and loaded to the Tennessee Titans. He's a far superior quarterback prospect than the Cam Wards and the Shedeur Sanders of the world. And, considering he had a pretty good year rookie season with literally no help. He had Kayshon Boutte, he had Pop Douglas, he had Hunter Henry. Ramondre Stevenson couldn't even keep it together half the season. I mean, whole new coaching staff, they're definitely going to help him out this offseason. I think he's a great addition at the 101 in Superflex leagues. I also think you can get Bo Nix plus. I don't understand why people aren't giving more respect to Bo Nix. And if I'm able to send the 101 in a Superflex league for Bo Nix and a future first, for Bo Nix and a couple seconds in the future, for Bo Nix and a veteran that I can go ahead and start today like Terry McLaurin, I think it's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, if you look at the entirety of the season, Bo Nix was a quarterback 7 on a points per game basis, averaging 19.4 points per game. But if you look at week 8 onwards, and we're going to reference that week 8 onward stretch a lot, we'll call it the money stretch. From week 8 onwards, he averaged 22.1 PPR points per game. That is just 0.2 points per game behind Jaden Daniels, who is my quarterback 1 in Dynasty. I think this is just Bo Nix. We saw this all last year. Badaki and I talked about how much we loved him, and everyone at every chance they could talked about how he was in college too long. He just doesn't have the aura of the other quarterbacks in this class, but he is putting up more points per game than almost anyone else, right? It's ridiculous in my opinion, and he only had Cortland Sutton, really. They're going to add more help for him this offseason. All right, look, if you're looking to move the pick for a running back, I mean, you only move this pick for a Jahmyr Gibbs and a Bijan Robinson. Again, if you're looking to get a running back, you don't move the 101 unless it's one of those two names. And quite frankly, if I have those two names, I'm probably not willing to sell them for the 101. So again, if you're looking for a running back, you probably stick and pick here. I mean, Bijan, Jahmyr, two guys who have already had the draft capital we are expecting Ashton Jeanty to get and have already proven to be young fantasy superstar building blocks. All right. I mean, those are the only two guys you consider at the running back position. At wide receiver, I don't think Puka Nacua is possible at this point. He is my wide receiver 4 overall. I think that's a little bit rich to get the 101 for him, but if you're shooting for the stars, you can go there. I think the more realistic acquisitions with this pick would be Brian Thomas Jr., all right, I think he might be a little bit more realistic than Puka Nacua. I mean, as a rookie, he went absolutely nuclear. I mean, finished as the wide receiver 12 overall in points per game, tied A.J. Brown this year on a points per game basis. And from week 8 onwards, he was averaging 17.5 points per game. In that span, he actually averaged more than Malik Neighbors. Wherever you have Malik Neighbors ranked, I think that's where you should have Brian Thomas Jr. ranked. They both had pretty bad quarterback play this year, but the difference is Brian Thomas has Trevor Lawrence long-term to build around. Now, as far as Nico Collins goes, I think you get Nico Collins and a plus. Same thing we said earlier with Bo Nix. So does that mean you get Nico Collins and Terry McLaurin in a deeper start type of league? Does that mean you get Nico Collins in a future first? Does that mean you get Nico Collins in the 201 in this class? Whatever that plus is, if you're going to target Nico, I think he's worth it. People forget that before his injury with that hamstring this year, he was one of the top 3 wide receivers in fantasy football. He was outscoring names like CeeDee Lamb. He was going absolutely crazy. And this team, while CJ Stroud was a disappointment, Nico Collins was not. He's the clear alpha who signed a long-term deal and is still very, very young. Now, if you're looking to get a tight end, I don't think it's possible, but Brock Bowers is the only name that you would trade the 101 for. So again, I don't think you can get Brock Bowers. I think you'd have to include like the 101 and a David Njoku at minimum. Probably you'd have to pay much more. But again, that is the only target at the tight end position. But again, I don't think it happens. And thankfully, I can show you guys some real trades that have happened for the 101. I actually put a tweet out recently, and you know, I do this quite often over there, trying to get you guys involved in different video formats. But if you are to trade away the 101, what sort of haul can you expect? Well, I will say, I don't know. I mean, I love everybody who went over there and submitted. I might not love all of your deals, but I love you. And in this scenario, someone got the 101, Jaden Reed, Jonathan Brooks, and the 407, and they sent away. I mean, let me read this off for you. The 105, two 27 first round picks, the 104, the 106, and a 2027 first round pick, as well as the 207. So they sent away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 first round picks and the 206. I guess Jaden Reed's, if that trade hits my inbox and I have the 101, there's no way I'm not accepting that. There's no way I'm giving up Ashton Genty for this treasure chest of assets. I mean, I can go out and get 3 running backs I love at the 104, 105, and 106 in this year anyway. So, I mean, sorry, Nate. I appreciate you for submitting, but I would definitely sell the 101 at that price. Even in a 1 quarterback format. And here's another one from the Tracy Take. This seems a little more realistic for the 101 if you're going to sell it. You can send away the 101. They got Jameson Williams, the 107, and 2 future first round picks. These are 2 examples where, again, I would find it difficult not to move on from the 101. But if I had the 101, if I'm a contender, I'm sticking with Ashton Genty, and I'm not really thinking about it twice. If I'm a rebuilder, I'm looking to trade away the pick for an absolute haul at this point. All right, at the 102, right now the rookie consensus is Tet McMillan. And I will just say, I'm going to dive into a little philosophy, I guess, if you will, on this class as a whole, in my humble opinion. Now, in my humble opinion, I don't think there should be a consensus 102 because I see a massive tier. In fact, I'll show you my rankings as they're currently constructed. I'm still going through film, all right, still evaluating. But right now, if you look at that green highlighted tier, tier number 2, I see a huge tier right here. I do not think Tet McMillan stands on his own. I think Luther Burden is just as willing to be as high as Tet. Same with these running backs like Amarion Hampton and Caleb Johnson and Travion Henderson. And, you know, Travis Hunter, if he were to declare as wide receiver, of course, if he plays cornerback, will completely change this. We don't need to know that right now, though. But I see this massive tier from the 102 to the 107, and I would really love to kind of maximize that pick. So here is my plan of action if I am wanting to trade the 102 right now. If I'm wanting to trade the 102, I'd like to get from the 103 to the 107. And if I do so, I'd like a future first on top of that. You know, this is a philosophy that we did all last year, guys. All right. The 101, the 102, I have no Caleb Williams. I have no Marvin Harrison Jr. on my Dynasty teams. It's not because I'm some brilliant person. It's because every time I had the 101 or the 102, I traded back to the 103 or the 104, got Jaden Daniels or Malik Neighbors, and got a future first, or got a very valuable asset, or got a pick swap. We did that all last offseason. We did it consistently, and I'm going to suggest to you guys to do it again this offseason. And here's my guide. If you have the 102 again, you can trade back to the 103, the 107, a future first. Now, if you want to go even further and go to this blue tier, which has Quinshon Judkins, Amike Egbuka, Shador Sanders, Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren, if you want to trade back even further, maybe you can get 2 firsts for the 102. Go back to the 112 and get 2 future firsts. Now, if you want to trade back even further from that, you can see a little preview here. Jalen Royals, Matthew Golden in that 4th tier. Can you get 2 future firsts and a vet for trading back from the 102? Again, these color-coded courses of actions there. Again, if you're just wanting to tier down from your pick, that is my plan of action as of today. And I will probably make another video about that just like I did last offseason here soon. Now, if you're wanting to turn that pick and you're not sold on Tet, or you just like me, you think it's just wide open, you'd rather get an actual solidified guy in the NFL today, Well, at the quarterback position in Superflex leagues, you can look at names like Patrick Mahomes, who was a huge letdown. Patrick Mahomes has not fallen in ADP like this in the entire history of him being in Dynasty football, right? I mean, since his second year where he started for the first time, he has never fallen this far in Dynasty rankings, right? Justin Herbert, who had a very rough start of the season with Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh. They were running the ball a lot, not letting him kind of fling the ball over the field. But towards the back half of the season was a great fantasy asset, and they're probably going to continue to build around him. Jordan Love, who kind of fell apart right now. He's probably an easier name to pick up long-term. They signed him to a long-term contract, and I think they're going to continue to build around him as well. CJ Stroud, down year. One of my biggest sell highs all last offseason, but now probably a pretty good buy low. And then Caleb Williams with the addition of Ben Johnson. You know, Ben Johnson's bright offensive mind, all the weapons that they could build in, they already have around him, but they could bring in, you know, a new running back like Ashton Genty, for example, at pick number 10. They're definitely going to have a better run game, which is going to take pressure off of him. All right, moving on to the running back position, Saquon Barkley. If you're looking to compete and you have the 102 and you want to say, you know what, I want to maximize the next 3 years of this window in Dynasty, go trade for Saquon Barkley, because there's a very good possibility that no one scores more points than Saquon Barkley in the next 3 years for fantasy football purposes. Now, I get he's old, but he has that long-term contract. He's in the best offense that he's ever been a part of. Over 2,000 rushing yards this year. I mean, come on, let's be realistic here. At the wide receiver position, I think this is the Nico Collins and Drake London range. Again, Nico Collins, if you get Nico Collins for the 102, I think you're getting a huge discount at that point, because this is a player who probably could be in tier 1. He probably could be in that range with the Justin Jeffersons, with the CeeDee Lambs. He and CeeDee Lamb are the same age. I mean, they're averaging a similar amount of points per game. They have the same role as far as alpha number 1 target share on their team. And as far as Drake London goes, you know, we saw how special he can be with Michael Penix in that last game of the season. I think he's a fantastic buy low right now. He and Michael Penix have an entire offseason to kind of get on the same page. Now, look, if you're looking at the tight end position, I think Trey McBride plus is what you should be looking to get back in return. I wouldn't do Trey McBride straight up just because I think you can get more value for the 102 come April. But let's say you get Trey McBride in the late first or Trey McBride in a couple of seconds in the future. I think that is more realistic. If you're watching this video and you want some advice on how to use your rookie picks, well, we have our team playbooks that we give out to our yearly Mother Flocker members, a direct customized guide, a game plan for your offseason to dominate, specific trade targets, exactly what we would do if we had your rookie picks. If you want to gain access to a team playbook, all you need to do is become a yearly Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAN. If you're already on a different promo code or you don't want to become a yearly member, you can also buy one a la carte on the Flock store. Check out the pinned comment. Let's get back to the video. All right, moving on to the 103. Now, the 103 is this huge consensus right now for rookie names like Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Amarion Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Luther Burden. If you're like me and you're not sold on this quarterback class, I'm not willing to spend the 103 on a Cam Ward, on a Shedeur Sanders. I think they have a lot of warts on their film. Look, you don't trust me. Like, this guy has no idea how to scout quarterbacks. I know that's like, people just, we don't know how to scout quarterbacks, so they just don't even try. I just personally believe the last time I had these kind of convictions around a quarterback was Will Levis. And I think those were very reasonable, difficult things to overcome. If you put Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders in last year's class, I don't know if they're first round picks. If they are, it's late first round picks at best. I think if they do go top 5, it's based off of need, not based off talent. And I say that understanding that Cam Ward has this high ceiling, but people just tend to forget his warts that are on film. Anyway, if you're looking to get a quarterback, instead of betting on Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, try and go get a Caleb Williams. Can you attach the 103 and the 112 for Caleb Williams? Can you attach the 103 and a couple seconds you have this year, the 206 and the 207 for Caleb Williams? These are the type of trades I'm trying to get right now because the expectations were super high, and anytime there's super high expectations and a player doesn't meet those expectations, their value typically dips, and that's what we're seeing for Caleb. Michael Penix Jr., Michael Penix, we saw his upside. I mean, he only started 3 games in fantasy football, and in one of those 3 games, he had over 30 points per game. I mean, in a great offense with incredible weapons all around him, showing great promise, I'd definitely spend the 103 on him. Kyler Murray, yes, tough year this year with Marvin Harrison Jr., but still has that long-term contract and still is a great rushing asset. At the running back position, if you can somehow manage Saquon Barkley for the same reasons we mentioned earlier, you should do that. But there's another couple names here. For example, Bucky Irving, and I put 2 pluses here, plus, meaning right now, based off of what I'm seeing in the market, and you can go watch my trade for video. I'll have my editor put a screenshot of the trade for video here. Go watch that. If you don't believe in Bucky Irving like I do, go watch that and then come back to this video and I'll tell you why I believe in him there. But I believe if you can get Bucky Irving in a future first for the 103, you do it in a heartbeat. If you can get Bucky Irving and Terry McLaurin, if you can get Bucky Irving and Jamison Williams, Bucky Irving and Jordan Addison, right? I mean, Bucky Irving and David Njoku. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. If you can get a plus for Bucky at the 103, I think it's worth it based off the market. And of course, Devon Achane. But the reason there's no plus on Devon Achane is because that's where the community values him right now. He's been great. I think he'll be a great asset long term. At the wide receiver position, you have names like Rashee Rice with the double plus. You know, again, all these other guys, people are going to say, yeah, worth the 103. Rashee Rice is probably the one name where people are kind of hung up on. They're like, I don't know. I'm worried about his suspension. I'm worried about his injury. But they completely forget that he was one of the best wide receivers in fantasy football before he went down with an injury. He had a better utilization rate than Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. He was a clear alpha, #1 dominant guy on this team. They desperately have missed him since he's been gone. If you can get Rashee Rice in a first for the 103, that is the deal of the century. That is the no-brainer of the century. Ladd McConkey, you're probably getting the 103 straight up. You know, incredible rookie season. We saw Ladd McConkey this year finish as the wide receiver 19 on a points per game basis. He actually averaged more points than JSN, who we also have in this tier. And from week 8 onwards, that money stretch, he and JSN both averaged over 17.5 points per game. They were both top 12 wide receivers in fantasy football. Both of them are fantastic ads. This is a great buy low on Marvin Harrison. If Marvin Harrison's in this class, he's unquestionably the 102. There's no thought about it. Even if Ashton Genty's there, and even with this bad rookie season, Marvin would be the 102. No questions about it. And if you're going to compete right now, A.J. Brown is in this range, right? You know, Trey McBride, I think this is where it becomes more of a straight up deal for Trey McBride. You know, again, in that money stretch, average over 17 points per game. Trey McBride did, was a tight end 1 overall. In a points per game basis from week 8 onwards, he won a ton of people championships. Now, here are some real trades that have happened for the 103. Now, I talked about trading back and maximizing value earlier at the 102. Here's a great example of someone doing it at the 103. Dustin did this. He got the 106 and a future 27 first, and he sent away the 103 in a second. This is the perfect example. This is exactly what I was trying to preach earlier on in the video to maximize the value of your picks. Really love it. All right. We are now going to move on to the 104 to the 107. Why am I grouping these picks all in the same kind of category here? Because personally, I believe they are all valued by the community the same, and they should be valued by the community the same. Because again, there's just this huge tier of ambiguity that will be determined by draft capital, right? I mean, we all love these different players and they're all in this certain tier. You know, again, to have my editor put these rankings back up on the screen, I think this is one huge tier right now from the 104 to the 107. So many different names could be worthy of it depending on draft capital. And I think this year, the 104 is not worth that much more than the 107. Like, honestly, in trades and the way people value them, there's just not that big of a difference between the 104 and the 107. Last year, there was a huge difference in the value you could receive. That's not the case in 2025. So here are some quarterbacks that you could look at getting for these picks. Kyler Murray, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy plus. Can you send the 104 away for J.J. McCarthy and a future first? Can you send the 104 away for J.J. McCarthy in the 112 for a couple seconds? If you can, it's a no-brainer because he's going to be starting for one of the most quarterback-friendly offenses in fantasy football. Brock Purdy, if he gets that extension, there's no way he's that cheap. Baker Mayfield, who the only reason he's this cheap is because he's, you know, getting to the 30s, right? Jared Goff, same thing. The only reason he's this cheap is because, again, that 30-year-old tag. But Jared Goff this year finished as the quarterback 8, almost 20 points per game. And from week 8 onwards, Jared Goff averaged almost 21 points per game. He averaged more points per game than Pat Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray. He was absolutely fantastic. These are reliable quarterback building blocks you can get if you don't want to bet on the Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders of the world. At the running back spot, this is still a range where maybe you can acquire a Bucky Irving. This is probably the sweet spot, the 104 to the 107. That is that sweet spot range for Bucky. I would buy him all day at that price. Again, go look at my last video, top 10 trade targets. You're going to be sold probably if you watch that video. Devon Achane for all the reasons we mentioned earlier. And then you've got 4 more running backs who are just very solid and reliable assets that I don't think will change value this offseason. And Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, and Kyron Williams. All guys that you can start, all guys that are probably RB1s in Dynasty football and most people's rankings, and I don't see the NFL draft really impacting them all that much. At the wide receiver position, you have names like JSN. Again, if you're able to buy him for the 104, it's a no-brainer. Some people are still concerned because they see that 15 points per game number, and it's not that impressive. But again, JSN took over in the second half of the season. That's where you really need to focus on his future value, if you will. Garrett Wilson, who's a fantastic prospect, would easily be the #1 wide receiver in this class if he came out, probably. But in a tough situation. T. Higgins, probably going to sign a long-term contract. Whether that's with Cincinnati or not, I don't think his value is going to be declining. In fact, when he signs a long-term contract, it's probably going to be more difficult to acquire him. And the following players, I'd be willing to send for like the 106, the 107s of the world if you get some sort of plus. Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, Rome Odunze. For example, can you send the 107 away, get Chris Olave and the 2-1? Can you get Chris Olave and, a couple future seconds? Can you get Chris Olave and an old veteran starting running back like James Conner? Like, these are some examples, okay? And then at the tight end position, I think it's a little early for Sam Laporta. He was pretty disappointing this year. I know he was dealing with an injury, but again, if you can get some sort of plus on top of Sam Laporta, I definitely think it's worth exploring that idea. Now, here's an idea where someone tried to trade down and maximize value. I really like the idea. We've been talking about trading down, maximizing value for these picks. I like the idea, but I really think they could have gotten more value during the rookie draft when their pick was actually on the clock. They traded down from the 104. They sent away the 206. They got the 105, and Michael Pittman. Look, Michael Pittman's a fine buy low right now, but just personally, I don't think you really haven't moved any needle here right now. Michael Pittman's probably worth the 206 right now. So again, this is an example where maybe patience would have paid off for this person, where if they did this during their actual draft when hype was at an all-time high, they probably would have gotten more. All right, moving on to the 108 to the 112. Now, again, these picks I would all value very similarly right now. They should all have a very similar value. The rookie consensus right now is Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland, two great tight end prospects, Emeka Egbuka, who's a great player, as well as Quinshon Judkins, kind of these forgotten stars, if you will, in this class. Now, if you don't want to draft one of those names, at quarterback, there are some fantastic discounts in Superflex leagues. Names like Bryce Young, J.J. McCarthy, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence. If you can send the 110, the 111 for any of these names, you're doing yourself a huge favor. They are massive discounts. And the running back position, there's a huge tier of veterans that you can go ahead and acquire that are probably safe through this cycle. James Cook, for example, who had a fantastic year in Buffalo. CMC, who signed a long-term extension with the 49ers. If you're a contender, there might not be a better buy than the 112 for CMC. Ken Walker, who has been fantastic when healthy. Chuba Hubbard, who got the long-term deal with Jonathan Brooks going down with the injury. David Montgomery, who's a great buy low right now. Derrick Henry, again, if you want to send the 112 and go compete for it all next year. At the wide receiver spot, we have a huge amount of wide receiver 2s in Dynasty football, like Zay Flowers and George Pickens, Jordan Addison, DJ Moore, who's a great buy low with Ben Johnson coming over, Jalen Waddle, another great buy low, Brandon Ayuk, another great buy low, DK Metcalf in here, Jamison Williams, and of course, like Terry McLaurin, if you just want to get a veteran that you can rely on next season. And at the tight end spot, this is really the sweet spot for Sam Laporta and TJ Hawkinson, in my opinion. Again, with guys like Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren being in this class, those are fantastic prospects. So I really don't think you should spend much higher on the Sam Laporta and TJ Hawkinsons, but this is kind of that range where the 110, 111, that kind of range. Now, here are some real trades that have happened for these picks. So, for example, cool guy here did exactly what I suggested. He sent the 111 for Trevor Lawrence. That's an incredible buy low for a Superflex league. Now, Sports Safe Space sent away the 112 for Christian McCaffrey. Again, in a contending roster, there's probably not a better trade you can make out there. And Simon got a huge discount on Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice, another name that people, it's not cool to like because of his off-field things, but if you buy him really cheap, you're going to thank yourself in a year's time. Mr. Keeney here, who got James Cook for the 112 and the 205. Now, to end the video, I do want to give you a little bit of advice here. If you don't have conviction in the 2025 class and you have the 108 to the 112 and you don't see a running back or a wide receiver that you're in love with or a player that really fits your team, go ahead and look to target to trade away that pick for the 2026 or 2027 first round pick. Basically what you're doing is you're taking a guaranteed pick slot and you're getting yourself a new scratcher, this unknown wild card, lottery ticket of a future class. So if you're not sold on this class, then that's another move that you can make. But I appreciate you guys watching the video. Do me a favor, hit that like button and show some love. Subscribe if you like the content, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Nothing but love. We'll see you soon. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.